Is Wanda one of the best MCU villains of the MCU after seeing Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness? These guys seem to think yes. I think absolutely not.
She's wrong. No,
Okay.
You're gonna have to name 3.
It's gonna be a little bit of a debate.
Just to lay the framework of what we're saying, I think that WandaVision was a perfect setup for this movie in that it took the character that we know and love from the Marvel Universe and it showed us her breakdown and it showed her doing all of these things that characteristically would be describing a villain, although it kind of left it open-ended at the end of that show as to whether or not she was good or bad. I think that what this movie did, Multiverse of Madness, is it gave me what I wanted to see from watching WandaVision, and it took her to that full evil place. Like, this is a villain, this is a bad guy. She is willing to she's not willing to stop at anything to get what she wants, which is her kids.
She has definitely slipped further into madness and darkness. It's clear now that she's unwell.
Yes,
like she's sick after everything she's been through. She's got like PTSD. All right, she lost her love of her life, her children who we can argue like, oh, they didn't even exist. I mean, they said the same thing in the movie, but they exist in every universe except for her own. And whether, you disagree with her motivations or not, like, it's clear that she's very evil now after just slipping into like, just being unwell. Also, Darkhold has corrupted her mind. So she's a big evil person now.
Do you feel like the Darkhold corrupting her mind is a plus or a minus? Because with the Darkhold corrupting her mind, it gives her sort of an out of being like...
No. I don't agree it gives her a complete out. Like, it does...
But it gives a little bit.
It
gives her like a justification, right?
I think it's just another complexity because it's the same thing with like villains that also are like mentally unwell. It's like, oh, could that be considered an out? Like, no, that's like a part of who they are and they should still be held accountable. And she chose to use the Darkhold.
Yeah, it's like, Bane using Venom to get stronger, but then that kind of like messes
it also
with
makes
his
you
mind.
like
But they did make it a big deal being like, oh yeah, if
and this is DC Venom, not Marvel Venom.
if you use the Darkhold, it takes a toll on the user. They made that a big point in the movie throughout, and that it's a temptation as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like because of those things, it's sort of people could basically argue she's not evil. It was the Darkhold,
They could.
Yeah, you could argue the same with any villain. Like, are they really bad?
Yeah.
Thanos is definitely really bad.
But
Thanos is not super complex character. He's like a bad guy because he has his convictions, and that's what he's gonna do at the end of the day.
My counterpoint was just your point of saying that you can say that to every villain in terms of questioning if they are really bad.
You can say that in terms of good villains.
Yeah.
that's a different argument.
I think that as far as the list of MCU villains goes, I think she's at the top, near the top, where you have Thanos, obviously. You have Killmonger, who people love.
But here's the thing. So one of the reasons I can't resonate with this villain is this Wanda as a villain is her motivation. I get that, like, we don't always have to understand their motivation, but for me personally, I feel like I do in order to consider them a good villain.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's fair.
Like you said, she felt happy enough to just put herself in an illusion and be like, oh yeah, these are my kids, I love it, this is a good life, whatever. But all of a sudden now she has to find a real one and murder her own self in order to like take the place of that person.
I don't think she was happy enough, though.
I think what's possible, especially with the although I hate using the spell or whatever as a crutch, but I think what happened is that, like, I would imagine that with that, like, magic, there's a part of her that's like, wait a minute, I have an option between an illusion family or a real family, and I deserve to have a real family, kind of a thing. Like, I deserve it. After everything that happened to me, I deserve it. So I think that's kind of what motivated her to go in there.
She's just escalating because she already like manipulated and controlled a bunch of people to be in that illusion. So it's like, what is it, especially with the Darkhold corrupting her mind, like, what more is it
Yeah.
to just like kill all these sorcerers
Right.
and do whatever I want
So-
to like get them?
Just to understand you guys clearly, the reason you guys think she's a good villain is because she had a good amount of setup and she sort of went from the hero to villain type of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I also
More
think
interesting.
in Multiverse of
Yeah.
Madness, she was the way that the directing was like
Yeah.
they made her very
Yeah.
scary and cool
She was,
looking.
yeah,
I
terrifying.
like
She was very-
I like
Yeah.
style. I
Yeah.
like seeing
Terrifying.
that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and like I value those things in film.
Just having her with dripping blood, limping.
Yeah, it's like
Not-
Carrie.
not to mention,
like
I
it's
felt
just
like
so
it was-
fun. If you like fun, you like her.
Not even just that.
Sorry, I enjoy fun.
That's true.
Now
that's
you're
true.
going for personal attacks, all right?
No, but even with that, like that's also a big plus. But for me, one thing I like was that I felt like she was a strong philosophical when I say philosophical, is we're looking in terms of themes, right? Because in storytelling, the antagonist is supposed to be almost like a good antagonist is supposed to be almost like the opposite or a parallel to the main protagonist. So I feel like she was perfect in the sense of like, okay, both of these characters are both playing with risky magic, but why do we like favor this character over that character? And there's sort of a argument
Right.
going on there. So I feel like she was a
there's
perfect.
no argument.
Also,
No,
Wanda,
but even then, like, but I guess the point going back to that argument,
Okay.
because the argument could
Yeah,
could go either
okay,
way.
you guys have had a lot to say. Let me introduce my points to why I think she's a weak villain.
All right.
Because I feel like I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
So, firstly, like when you say like we went morally, or I'm guessing you mean like morally gray characters are more interesting as villains, right?
Morally gray. It doesn't even
not
have to be morally
necessarily.
I
gray.
mean,
It could just be.
personally, I think that's kind of cool
It's just
when
like
they are.
it's just more of an aspect of like we see why they went that path.
I think it depends on the story. Honestly, you could have a morally gray character in a story that doesn't like favor that, and it just doesn't come across
Okay.
as good.
I like a
But then if
tragic
you have-
villain, yeah.
Thanos is not a morally gray character. Thanos is very like staunch, and he knows what he
knows
wants.
his convictions.
And what makes it interesting is the story around him.
Yeah,
I think,
yeah, I agree.
Or a better.
That's sort of because you said earlier when like all the good villains have like that, right? That's what I was meant to counter. But for me, I felt like Wanda was really one track in that she didn't have much complexity. It was just like, oh, all this trauma is like hitting me. I gotta kill everyone to get my kids. Like
Sounds a lot like season 8 Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's not time.
where
Yeah.
where's the line? Where's the thing that makes her border between hero and villain? It sort of went from like somewhat like full on hero to like boom all the way villain. You know, I didn't
No,
I
see that.
think-
no,
I
no.
think-
They've been building up. I think
Yeah.
this is better than season 8 Game of Thrones
Yeah.
because from the beginning, Wanda was an outsider. She was ostracized in every single movie at multiple points by different people. You have Tony criticizing her all the time. You have even Vision
That's
mistrusting her at points.
Yeah.
This has been a trend over the MCU movies. Wanda has never. She's always discounted by people all the time.
Yeah, but
no one ever trusts her because she's like a witch, a magic user, and she's also a mutant. Like a lot of people, I mean, she's already.
Just because they don't trust her doesn't make her like transition into a villain. You know?
But it's the setup.
She's a
The
she's a
setup
tragic
is there.
character. Like she hasn't had a good life this whole time. Like
The
the
setup
only
is there the whole time.
the only happiness she ever had was with Vision.
Right, because it's not like it would be weird if Steve Rogers all of a sudden turned bad and started killing
Okay.
people in order to like
They could make that work.
they could make it work, but I'm saying if they like all of a sudden at the beginning of this movie or at the beginning of one movie they made Steve Rogers turn bad because he wanted to like save some family member.
yeah, I get that WandaVision.
It's not the same as this situation.
I understand that. I get that WandaVision is a setup and also like somewhat of the transition from her going from like full on hero to.
Even before WandaVision.
I don't agree with that. I feel like before WandaVision, she's just full on hero. Like
Not necessarily, because
She's
we have to
been-
understand.
she's been-
She was
'Cause
the reason
even
of the
in-
Sokovia Accords.
Yeah.
yeah,
she was the
I'm
reason
talking
for the
about
Sokovia Accords.
after that point. Like, sure, she was like somewhat a villain in Avengers 2, right? Because she's
Yeah.
being manipulated.
I mean, she was a legitimate villain in
Sure,
Avengers
she
2.
wanted to save the world that she was living in because that's where she was living in with Vision.
Yeah,
like
arguably, I think she's a better villain in Avengers 2 than she is in this movie.
Interesting.
Because she has more, there's more
To me, it
things that
sounds like
tie her to her actual character in terms of her origins, and also she's like fighting for something.
But yeah, that shows she just already has a history of violence. Like,
yeah, but for this movie, she just felt like full on, I'm gonna kill everyone with no remorse.
she's unhinged. She is.
Yeah,
she's
at this
unhinged.
point, yeah.
She's mentally unwell.
And I don't like that they didn't show any of her like past hero elements. I felt like,
She doesn't have any more
but
hero elements.
but like that doesn't make sense. Like she was trained by the Avengers. She was with them. She was with Vision. Where's the remorse of like Vision wouldn't like this? Where's the feelings of like all the past movies that make her a hero?
That's a story gripe at this point.
That's
Like,
what I'm saying, like-
no, I feel like we're discounting a lot of what has already we've seen. We saw Vision,
But
we
I'm
saw
saying
her-
in this movie though, like in the most Doctor Strange movie, we didn't see any of those elements play out. Like it
I
was
think
just
they
full
just-
on. I'm gonna kill all these people.
Okay, I understand
movie was,
that.
like,
I
already
think they
2
just
hours.
felt like they didn't need to at that point because
Yeah.
they had already done a lot of that in WandaVision. And
No,
so
not really. WandaVision was sort of like a haze at first, and then she realized that yes, I am, holding these people captive or whatever. But it was still somewhat like not her. Like it was more her holding on to like whatever she had left versus I'm gonna like intentionally hurt these people to get what I
Well,
want.
maybe I don't
But-
think she
but-
was
but-
ever
but-
a fully realized
but-
hero.
okay,
She was
but
like not really
we-
of an Avenger.
We also have to take in consideration
she was definitely an Avenger.
with the people that she's hurting are people who are in her way. So it's not like just random people who's like, oh, I'm going to damage you. It's more like you're
tried
in
to
my
be
way.
reasonable.
And she even told
At the
them,
beginning.
she even said, look, guys, just give me the thing and I won't hurt you.
Yeah.
And they were like, we're going to stand for it. So she's like, okay.
she was like, I'm trying to be reasonable.
So-
this
it
whole
was like
time.
the last straw. She's like, okay, if you're gonna be against me, then
Yeah.
this is like all I have left to do.
That was her hero element. She said she's trying to be reasonable.
That is no. She's like sending monsters to murder a girl. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. And,
She's sending monsters that are wrecking everything and like hurting a lot of people, and she ends up killing so many like magic users.
She's been slipping this whole time. WandaVision happened as a trauma response.
Yeah, but do you guys get my viewpoint though?
I
Like,
get what you're saying to an extent that there should be like someone who saves lives at some point should feel sort of a guilt or a remorse to what they're doing. Like there shouldn't just be like a turn.
she
So I
seems
get what you're
so
saying.
one track.
Yeah,
in this
I
movie
see what you're saying,
that
but
she loses a lot of complexity for me. That makes her a weaker villain.
I guess for where we're coming from is that we've seen like at this point the movie is like she's finally made that kind of decision of like I'm gonna get my kids no matter what, and if you get in my way, I'm just gonna kill you.
Which I get your point in the
And I
context
think-
of an isolated film.
Yeah.
But with you,
Yeah.
when you take into consideration everything else, I think it works.
And,
So
and
I
I
think
guess
you are like
and for
point.
people who like this, because the hard part is like how can anybody stand by it? I think it's the idea that if you are a parent and you have kids, it's that idea that I'm gonna do whatever I can for my kids, even if it means like
Even if they're fake kids. Yeah.
even then, even if
mean,
if
they're
it felt-
real in
but
every
to
other
her,
universe.
It felt really real, and the fact that she figured out there was real in another universe that made her.
in
Yeah.
every
Well,
other universe.
There's another reason I feel that she's a weak villain, and it's just the fact that, like, she could have just negotiated with that girl, like, try to understand her, tried to help have that girl understand her, because even by the end of that movie, she was like,
This is something that maybe someone who was like fully mentally healthy would do.
Yeah,
but it's
Yeah, somebody who didn't have to
Someone
kill
who wasn't
her
evil.
husband.
She's
Yeah.
evil.
And,
yeah.
you know, unintentionally enslave a town and then intentionally enslave a town.
she also had other vision as well that could potentially have helped her.
No, he's gone. I don't know where.
Yeah,
he is.
yeah. Well, who's out her vision? We
And
don't
like-
know.
We can't.
And like, are we just forgetting that Hawkeye was the one who actually got her in the Avengers? Like he still exists. He's still alive.
Yeah.
What is he
but-
gonna do?
Yeah.
He's Hawkeye.
He's a
He's gonna
I know
talk
you
to her.
like
exactly talk to her, reason with
Yeah.
her. There's-
No.
No, she can't be reasoned with.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
But
She
also,
clearly can be because she was swayed at the end.
okay.
Well, but the reason why she was swayed at the end was because she got kind of what she wanted.
No, the reason she was swayed was because like she saw the ramifications of
Exactly,
what she was doing
exactly.
with like her kids seeing her as the monster.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but that seems so weak to me because she can dream walk. It just seems like she was stupid or something. Like, did she not realize that would happen? Like, how did she think it was gonna play out?
it
Even
was
strange.
tunnel. It was tunnel vision. I think
Yeah.
she like you were right. She did have a one-track mind, and that's like you know, That's what happens.
It just
when-
feels like she was so dumb. Like I can't get behind a villain that her intent was to have this outcome, and she cannot even see or like imagine how this outcome would turn out in reality.
Yeah.
It just seems so dumb. Like
She was impulsive. I think she was impulsive. I think that she's unhinged. Yeah.
I don't think you're wrong. I just think that it's.
Yeah.
I think
you making a point.
I think you're right in that's the obvious outcome to like those of us from the outside looking in. I can also see how somebody in that position wouldn't see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
that's
Strange even questioned her about it.
Yeah,
which
but-
I like.
So that helps her like try to see it, but it didn't.
There's no
Yeah,
helping
but
her.
at that point,
There's no helping
she
her.
at that point she was just lost at that point though.
But then I mean, I have a question. So then who are like your top 3 Marvel villains? And then if you want to go further, you can do top 5, but I don't know if you can do top 5.
That's a really tough question. Can you consider Loki a villain?
Yeah.
That's the thing is like at this point I don't know.
I mean, he's.
So
I will
that's why
say,
that's
at
why
least for the Avengers Phase 1, he's a villain.
Yeah.
no, because we're including everything for Wanda, aren't we?
We are. Yeah.
We should
but
include everything
he-
for Loki, and that's why I don't think he should count as a villain at this point.
He's a
maybe an
villain.
anti-hero.
Yeah.
I think you
He's
can
an
say-
anti-hero now.
well, sure, the character now might be an anti-hero, but I think in like if we're talking about the villains of the MCU, I think we can include
Okay.
him in that.
I like Shang-Chi's dad. I think he was a good one. I think.
What's his name?
Huh? what's his name?
Shang-Chi's dad.
Chucky's dad.
Well, he doesn't like being called the Mandarin, so
Well, he had a name.
it was Wu something. It was
Anyway, what's the next one?
Yeah, also, we just had a gripe about him not having a redemption arc. Because he kind of, at
That's
the end,
true.
came
Yeah.
around.
I hated the fact that he died, but I thought he was like a good villain for the most part.
And then he came around. And you know what? He also had tunnel vision.
Oh, his name is Wen Wu, by the way.
He had tunnel vision about he
His
was trying to
wife.
save his wife.
And he was
That's
under the
same
influence
thing.
of the dragon. Wanda's under the influence of the Darkhold.
Okay.
That's the same villain. This is the
No,
same person.
it is not the same
Yeah,
villain.
Yeah, you're right. Because Wanda had more of a
Why,
bigger
why
buildup,
wouldn't he?
but-
Why wouldn't he logically know that if he saved his wife but had to kill all of these people along the way, that she would look at him like a monster?
Also, she definitely wasn't real also.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Very different context.
No, it's the same character.
He's being brainwashed.
It's the same character. We just didn't get set up for that one. We got set
No,
up
but
for
to be,
this
no,
one.
okay,
but to be-
guys,
no,
he
but-
chose-
but to be
he
fair
chose
on
to wear
Scott's
the
point,
rings
he
again.
was being brainwashed though.
He was being brainwashed and was getting hallucinations. All right. That's number one. And firstly, I asked you guys about the Darkhold and whether or not that gives her an out. It does not. You guys said that.
Sure.
So because you said that, you can't be like turning around right now and
I
being
think
like it was
I
her being
don't think it
manipulated.
gives
I don't
her an
think
out.
it gives him an out. In fact, he's the one that chose to don the rings again. So he was already from that moment
No,
slipping
I'm talking
too.
about Wanda. Like the Darkhold giving her an out. You guys said that it doesn't.
No.
It's her choice.
But that's because
Yeah,
of all
what
the
do you
setup
mean,
that we had
Wenwu?
before.
I'm saying that Wen Wu was mostly being manipulated.
But he
That's 100%. Like Shang-Chi
Yeah.
was like telling him
Yeah,
that
there's
he
a
was
point
being
that he was
manipulated.
being manipulated for the most part.
They're very, very
So it
different.
is
I also
different.
think
It's
he
not
would
the
be
same at
less
all.
susceptible if he put the rings away for good.
I don't think so. I don't think the rings necessarily make a person evil. Like Shang-Chi was using it and he was fine.
But he was already becoming like a bad guy again, you know, after like the revenge part of the story.
Yeah, and I feel like that made him more interesting as a villain.
Okay.
Anyway, next one.
His name is Wen Wu, all right?
Sure.
I know his name.
You got to think about it. You
Yeah.
got to think about
Yeah,
it.
it's a harder name to remember.
Yeah.
Is it?
That's simply the truth.
There's 5 letters.
Did you remember his name?
Sure, yeah.
What are you sure? Yeah.
I didn't remember his name. And does that make him a
Remember
good?
his name?
No.
There you go. I remembered his name.
But would you remember a villain's name if they were really good?
I remember Malekith. He wasn't
Oh my
great.
God. You
Oh
have to
my
look it up to
God.
confirm it, all right?
I mean, I was still right.
Okay. Name aside, Thanos clearly is an interesting villain and has done things for the story of the MCU that
We can
was
agree.
impactful.
Yeah.
I thought Killmonger's motivations were great. Like he's a good villain as well.
Sound.
Yeah.
There you go. There's 3.
Those are your 3. That's fair. That's fair. I think those are
I think
fair.
each of those villains were better villains than Wanda was.
I mean, I can agree for 2 of them.
So would you
Yeah.
say she's not a villain at all?
No, she's 100% villain. She just
Okay.
sucks as a villain.
See, that's a hard thing for me to. I guess it's a preference. It's a preference thing because he obviously I can tell you want a villain that's more
Complex?
logically, not just more logically sound. That's what sounds more like it.
Yes.
More logically sound as opposed of we're okay with a villain becoming crazy and having this moment of like
Lapse in judgment.
yeah, where it just at some point it's just like they just became insane.
It's just weak motivation for me. Like,
But
that's like
still
one of the
think
biggest things.
She's had everything stacked against her from the beginning. I don't think like she ever had like a real true friend this whole time outside of Vision also.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hawkeye? No!
He gave her a pep talk.
He doesn't even do any hero work anymore. He's like got a family. He doesn't talk to her.
Yeah.
Hawkeye was the one who picked her up. Hawkeye was the one who convinced her to go out again.
Yeah, but that was
they
like
were not. That
That's
was
hero
it. They weren't
duties.
really,
They seemed
like,
close.
I mean,
They did.
sure.
Well, that
but
just makes
like,
it more tragic too, because like now even he probably couldn't reach her right now.
Yeah, but he didn't even try. Like,
Yeah, because he's retired.
that is not a good
He
reason.
has to get.
He's literally deaf.
Spending Christmas with his family. Like, leave him alone. What are they gonna do? Call
Yeah.
Look,
Hawkeye? Like, come on.
Why
Why are they
not?
gonna call
He's a good
Hawkeye?
source to try to talk.
yeah. Again,
Why
like,
didn't they call all the other Avengers that are existing?
Yeah, like
But you could say that about any.
about anyone.
know.
Does Doctor Strange even know
Yeah.
about their relationship?
Where's
Yeah.
Monica Rambeau? Is that her
That's
name?
another one.
Who cares about her?
That's her friend. Why didn't they go? Yeah, you could say the same thing about.
No, that is not the same. I feel like there's a lot of like
What? Hawkeye's her best friend? No way.
It's not.
they're not
It's
best
like,
friends, but they have a relationship.
They talked a couple times.
That is like
I don't think.
I if you can't see how they have a connection, I can't convince you.
No, I agree. They trauma bonded, but
Trauma bond.
yeah, they trauma bonded, but like. I still think that just so many things were like stacked against her. She is a tragic character. Like her whole inception, like the way she was born, like the way her powers were born, everything. Like, this is her moment and she thinks she deserves it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. I'm not denying that. There's a good amount of setup. There's a good amount of like stuff that they did that in concept would make her a good villain. But I felt like this movie's execution of all of it was not good enough for me.
That's
Sure.
fair.
It just felt like they instantly turned her into a crazy person that's willing to murder anyone
Okay.
to achieve the goal of finding these what used to be fake kids in reality and not thinking about the consequences of it actually happening. It just seemed all too dumb for it to make sense as a good villain for me.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair. That's fair.
I disagree.
It
but-
did.
I disagree.
Yeah,
I think it's just for us. It's
yeah.
a context thing. I think.
I
think it's just because the idea, especially for us, having like a Marvel hero,
Like it would have been so.
turn into
Go ahead.
like a Marvel hero go into like madness kind of thing. I think there's sort of an appeal
They
to
could have
that.
done it better.
And
They could have
to
done it
me,
way
what
better.
I also liked about it is that she winds up getting her resolve as well. So it's like there's a thing with story arcs where there's a thing called a positive change arc. There's also called a negative change arc. And the whole point of the change arc is that the more a character does a certain action to get what they want, the outcomes become more toxic. So for me to see this character, especially for us to have this, good hero abiding system go in this negative change arc because she wants something, I feel like that is really more emotional appealing to me than like just having any other character where it's just kind of like, maybe they're antagonists or maybe they're reasonable. They're all
Again-
you make a point because she literally did change at the drop of a hat. I think that was
that's a
for
fair
dramatic
point, though.
effect. I think that was maybe some of the story suffered when the style elements were like brought in. But I think I don't know. Yeah, maybe they could have written her better. They could have done a
agree.
better job of executing
agree.
it.
Yeah,
But
I personally thought the resolve was weak. I just felt like it was the obvious outcome, and like she could have easily just talked to America and try to come up with something like that they could have done, like find a universe where she accidentally died or something.
that would have worked. But I also, to me, I like.
What's wrong with that? What's wrong?
No,
with
no, but even
because-
then, I like the
Yeah.
idea that she doesn't really get what she wants. I think that's the important lesson, because for her to get what she wants, that kind of ruins the lesson.
Yeah,
oh
but
yeah, I don't think she knows who she is.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because like she is in this world where she does not have kids, and she has sort of convinced herself that she deserves to be in a world where she does have children, even though that's not the path that she took. And so to kind of have a story where she gets that, I don't know, it would have felt weird. Like, what do you mean? Like, you just like slipped into this
I personally don't think she deserves it. I think I think this was the perfect way to get the hell. You're an ugly monster. What? No, I did everything because I loved you. Like, that was the perfect, like, fuck you.
So
that
cheesy.
was the best. I don't care if it's cheesy. She deserves that.
Yeah,
that's the lesson.
That's
the lesson when you try to go
fun.
when you take a toxic path to get what you want, this is where you burn.
When you're willing to just throw everything away for what
I agree that outcome is
want.
better story-wise, but in terms of the story overall and her character's way of thinking, I just felt like every other villain had more of like a sound conclusion to their plans, and like.
But you don't have to. I don't think you need a villain with a sound plan for them to be a good villain. Like, that's the Joker.
That's personally what I prefer. Joker still does have a sound plan. His plan is to make Batman's life miserable.
No, his plan is to try to make Batman get into madness. That was his plan.
Exactly.
Sure.
So Joker does have a plan.
That was the whole point, to prove his point.
But
Joker literally plans all of throughout Dark Knight. He's like a mastermind.
Although,
planner.
you know what's so funny? Ironically, in the Dark Knight, he says he doesn't.
Exactly.
He says that. But clearly, just watch the movie.
We can't talk about Dark Knight now. We can't talk about Dark Knight right now.
Yeah, we can't. He spontaneously comes up with plans.
Let's not get derailed.
I think it was executed fine, just fine.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we saw her the first time she dreamwalks and she sees her kids. She's like speechless.
Yeah,
that's what she wants more than anything else in the world, because that's the only time she feels happy.
I totally understand everything, like your viewpoints and everything. It's just the fact that I can't come to terms with her. Yeah, like a lot of those things that I mentioned earlier, but also like that resolve. Just I felt like there could have been way better ways to go about it. Yeah, and for the other villains, like for instance Killmonger, how's he gonna achieve what he wants by talking to people? He can't. He has to take action. For Wanda, she could have talked to people and figured stuff out.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I agree with you. I feel like
same with Thanos. Like he has to take action if he wants his plan to go through. He can't just be like, oh yeah, let's allocate the resources, everyone. They're not gonna listen to him.
I feel like, to your point, it would have been interesting. At least it would have been better if they showed her try to go those routes.
Exactly.
It doesn't work out.
That's what I mean. She just went straight villain like that.
Yeah. So I agree with you. It's how I feel about Eren Yeager.
Yeah.
So
give me a second.
Let's not spoil.
I'm not spoiling anything. I'm just saying. I'm not gonna go details, but yeah.
Again, those are people whose minds aren't fractured.
I don't know.
Because she didn't even know that she was like trapped in her
that's
own
true,
mind.
and that's where she brought a point. Because at the point where she wanted to do this, she was already in not a mentally clear head, as opposed to all those other villains where they already were in a clear headspace. Which, and funny enough, them taking action is what caused them to be in clear headspace.
And she is susceptible to things.
Fair.
Like she was susceptible to Harkness, and she's susceptible to the Darkhold, and just all these things. Sure. No other villain is like that.
Yeah, it's a tough. That's why the context does play into it. But
throw away all that hero stuff.
I mean,
throw it away.
At that point, especially when you took over a town and all that, it's like, well, I've already did something wrong and it wasn't too bad. How much more?
But I mean, if you really feel like she sucks as a villain, I mean, there's only one direction to go, is up, because we have not seen the last of her, right? Because we're gonna see mutants soon. We're gonna see some Real House of M type stuff, like.
And what's she gonna be? Not a villain anymore, probably.
No, I think she should be a villain.
I mean, they could have like a redemption arc, which would be great. A great change of pace for Marvel. Yeah. They could redeem her. I think that would be cool. But yeah, we'll see. I don't think she's dead. I think we've.
Well, it's gonna be like, they try to treat her like they treated Magneto, then maybe we'll see some good stuff, Yeah.
But I will acknowledge, I can understand why you guys think she's a good villain. I just have personal issues with her. Yeah, I know. And I'm glad you can understand.
Yeah, definitely. There's a character that I felt.
And you said some of my points are valid. Thank you. I don't want to see it. We seem to be thinking very differently. It's all good. We're still buddies. But let us know in the comments like what you guys think. it's okay if everyone thinks that's that. I know that this is a very, very like personal gripe. But
No, I'm glad because I think this will be divisive. I don't think we're the only ones having this conversation. Really.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
all right. Well, yeah. Let us know your thoughts, and if you enjoyed our discussion, like and subscribe. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Peace.
Later.